Folks, welcome to the Solutioneers podcast. I'm Rebecca, and I'm excited to get to introduce to you some of the awesome Solutioneers and team members at FMO Media who make the culture and company, not to mention the content, so great. And today we have Josh. Josh has been with us over 2 years now, right, Josh?
Yep.
I remember when we first interviewed you, and I remember your homework for your role. Josh is one of our editors, but you're also a production team lead who leads Instant Social Video, our video platform for members who are creators, or maybe they're entrepreneurs or business owners, or anyone who wants to create great video content, but they need help with the editing and execution of it. And Josh, you lead and guide just that. But before we get into anything FMO related, do you want to give a little bit of background on yourself and maybe talk about, what got you into video production and editing, and maybe even a little bit about what drew you to the role that you're in right now?
I've always kind of had a bunch of different skills, and I never really knew where they fully met. And so I've always had skills in like music, cameras, audio. And I was in college, and I was actually in my senior year, and I was studying civil engineering. And I realized that I just didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I mean, I worked as an intern for an engineering firm, and just realized really quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I decided to take a chance, basically. And before I finished college, I decided to take a film class, and along with a couple other creative classes, and absolutely just fell in love with film and realized that it truly just checked off so many of my boxes. I actually also finished my college bachelor's degrees with a degree in psychology and a degree in media production focused on film. When I was sitting that first film class, my professor was talking about all the different things that you actually needed to really be skilled at to be a skilled professional in the media industry. And it was just as if she was reading a checkbox for my life, honestly. Everything was just checking off, and it just felt like I was ready to go. And then, she continued the lecture, and she paused for a second. She goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot. You also really have to be good at understanding psychology to be good in film." And I was like, I just about honestly broke down crying, because I just knew that this is what I wanted to do forever. And so through that, I ended up getting an internship at I think it's Michigan's second largest credit union. I worked actually at their headquarters branch in their marketing department as a videographer, video editor, a multimedia production intern overall. And I was helping write scripts, helping edit, helping film, helping make commercials, so many things overall. And then that led me to my role here at FMO Media when that ended, and shortly after I graduated college. So that's pretty much my backstory on how I've gotten to where I'm at today in terms of video editing. And I really just love understanding and taking the creative elements of videos and just making them so much more than they seem, I would say. I think anybody can just pick up a camera and record, but I think it takes truly a skilled individual to make it something that everyone else wants to watch too.
That's a really great point.
That's part of my goal.
Yeah. and I can see that through your work too. When it comes to the psychology, I think that's really interesting and kind of serendipitous for you that you were already studying it and it helps in your field. But what have you seen it help with primarily, or maybe more recently, would you say, when it comes to editing? And it makes sense, for our audience, for those that maybe are just getting to know us, we're creating content that features people primarily, right? So that's why Absolutely. I can see how it definitely comes into play. But where do you see it come into play for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like one of the biggest things that it comes down to is definitely kind of understanding the why for everything. I think that's one of my main reasons why I even studied psychology. I just love understanding like what makes people tick and what pushes them forward. And I think that goes hand in hand a lot, especially with our clients, and especially seeing it on the back end of things in the production side of like as they're recording their videos, like what are they trying to accomplish with this? What do they see beyond just this video as their goals? And understanding not only that side, but also with client communication, trying to make sure that their goals are truly met, and really just putting everything that I know in practice in trying to make them always feel, heard and understood, and really make sure that I'm conveying everything that I've learned to the team and anyone else that's working on their content. So that way they truly can get what they kind of are looking for out of all this. I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of people, obviously learn so many different ways. And I feel like psychology is a big part of understanding that very quickly with somebody and trying to work with them in their best input. So,
well, that's a great point. And we can maybe pivot to talk a little bit about the team and helping to train the team, because that's something that you've been involved with for a long time now, really.
yeah,
I think you started helping with training 3 months into your time with us. So pretty much the
yeah,
whole time at FMO, you've been training and helping other team members. And I think that speaks to your kind nature and wanting to help out the team and make sure we all grow and improve. But I want to talk a little bit about that too. And when it comes to training, especially other editors, what do you like to pay attention to, or what do you like to keep in mind to help them understand the concepts, or maybe the technical skills that they're adapting to or updating?
I think, going back to the concept of like everybody learns differently, I think that also applies to teaching very much so, and trying to help other people get on the same page as you and also help them level up their game. I mean, everybody comes from a different background. I don't expect us to all be on the same, platform initially, but I think we can all help each other get there. And so I think with teaching wise, I think it's very important to first off understand, especially for editors, what they have to work with, and what their systems might be, and what they can do to improve their quality of time and their video quality at the end of the day. And I think going through, some people might need a step-by-step instruction. Some people might already have some of that foundation already figured out. And so it's really trying to figure out from that first step of like where they're at,
Mm.
so then you can really help elevate them. And I think going through the training process, it's really important to I would say teach overall as much as you can. I think try not to information overload someone, but at the end of the day, I want to give them as much information as possible. And I think that it's important that they know just as much as I know in terms of the editing process, so that way they can replicate and learn and even prosper in their own ways beyond what I've initially taught. I mean, I feel like everything that I do video editing wise is constantly changing. I would even say possibly practically every week I'm trying something new, just to try and find ways to either help make my process easier or elevate the content for my clients. I feel like it's really important for me to always try to stay up to date. And I think it's important for me to also share that information with everybody else, and I feel like that goes with anything that they learn that's new and might be more productive or helpful. I feel like it's really important to just keep that team element to just share as much as possible, and anything that you learn that might be a quicker way to do it, absolutely just share it with somebody else, because I bet they probably could be in the same boat as you, honestly. So I would say that's definitely been a big philosophy in my training processes.
I love that perspective and keeping in mind, where somebody else is in their stage or progress, and just the idea that you're helping them, but you're also still learning too, speaks to that growth mindset that I I know we cherish as a value at FMO. But getting to see individuals really
Hmm.
champion that in their own right, that's really cool. It's really cool to see you take the lead
Absolutely.
in that, Josh. Yeah.
I
Tell
love
me.
watching others succeed.
Yeah. Well, it's great, especially when you're a manager, team lead. And this might not, this is how I feel about it. I don't want to speak for you, but, I like to see how we as a team can succeed together. And I like to see how individuals are winning at their progress and their goals. And that's probably selfish. There's probably some psychological selfish elements of that, I'm sure.
Patting
You
yourself on the back a little.
know better than I. Yeah, you definitely know that better than I would. But there's great immense satisfaction in seeing other people grow and progress. And I've definitely seen you grow and progress, Josh, over the last 2 years. Now that you are leading a program, how do you navigate some of the challenges of that? Or what are some of the challenges that you've seen that you're understanding and coming up with solutions for and figuring out as you're taking this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say right off the bat, the biggest ones that stand out to me is just trying to understand the client, similar to like the approach that I would take with trying to understand, the editors. I think it's really important when you work with different clients to right off the bat understand their needs, their vision, and their creative approach, and just try to find ways that you can build upon those and make sure that you're achieving those through every single edit that you're working on. Um, and I think, some clients come in with a really strong idea of what they want, right? And they definitely, some of them have a lot of inspiration that they see online, and I love that. But at the same time, there's a lot of other clients that start and they have no direction or no ideas of what they want to do. They just feel a need to get their videos out there, and they see that videos are performing very well, and they really want to take that step forward. And so I would say overall, I would say like the most, not necessarily challenge, but I think it's a little fun too, of just a little thing that we can all learn is just to try and take all that information that we kind of gather and like implement it into obviously the awesome short form content that we make, and try to not only take what they're saying like verbally or maybe what they've written down in a message or an email, but to turn it into something that is just so much more and try to describe it like visually through the video, and to really help those elements thrive, I should say. I also think that it's really important to also take that information that the client has shared and find ways to convey it to whatever editor may be working on it. And obviously, I think that goes back to understanding how they might learn best. And sometimes it just takes, showing them examples. Sometimes it might make a better option to write it all out. Sometimes it might just be better to jump on a call and like verbally tell them kind of the style, just because everybody learns a little bit differently and everybody picks up on different things. And a lot of the times, like if obviously there's a lot of translation that could be lost if it's just sent over a message. And so sometimes it's important to just try to set that standard and help them or the other editors also understand that standards. That way they can not only replicate it, but, conquer and do awesome things with it. So
I love that. I think what you're describing is really that the solution for you and your project, your team, is dependent on the other person or people involved and taking into account their point of view, their learning styles, like you mentioned. I think that's
mhm.
really good sort of framework to have for yourself, that it goes beyond you and what you think the solution might be, but really what's going to benefit that other person. So I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely.
Perspective on
Absolutely.
perspective. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, one of my biggest principles that I always say, I always say this in so many different reference points, whether I'm talking to, the client themselves, or whether I'm talking to another editor or somebody on the team, and I'm just trying to describe at the end of the day that, like, sure, I might be editing the video, it might be partially like my product in terms of that, but at the end of the day, I'm here to represent the client and what they want, and like I want to make sure that they're vision is conveyed through that. And so whether that, means I'm working on it, whether it's somebody else is working on it, I think it's just important to always keep that in mind. So,
Yeah, for sure.
mhm.
What if one of the challenges is that you can't come to an agreement on if a video is done? I'm thinking about Da Vinci actually, because I was recently listening to a discussion on
Mhm.
the great artist, and he was notorious for never finishing his work because he didn't know when it was done. And I
Mhm.
wonder, that made me think, oh, wow, you could apply that to today in anything for the most part. I
Oh yeah,
challenge all of you to
absolutely.
find something you can apply that to. But especially for video editing, because you could continue to edit and edit and edit. And maybe a client might want you to keep editing until this vision is fully realized. But at some point, you have to post it, right? You
Hmm.
have to be done at some point. So, what's the benchmark or the structure or the framework, if there is one, and or what do you do in that kind of situation where the edits feel like they're dragging on and you do need to come to a place of completion? How do you tackle that kind of challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of something that or like we spoke about in one of my capstone classes. Actually, we actually had industry professionals. A lot of them were from Hollywood. A lot of them were in movies or actors or different elements of the production business overall. And I remember one of them coming to speak. I can't remember his name exactly, but what he told us overall was that at the end of the day, don't ever stop creating content. Just like move on from your current project. Just once you're done with it, move on and start something else. Because I think, we all, especially if you look at how like movies are made, especially if you dive into so many different elements that go into each process, everybody has such a unique role that, they could spend honestly years on. And at the end of the day, we'd have no movies or no content created or anything like that, because there is just a level of like perfection, I guess I would say anti-perfection, that is good enough to where the video itself has a complete picture, it has a complete story, it has everything that you want, and of course it could be better. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to move away from that perfectionist mindset, and I'm definitely speaking to myself here, I am definitely a perfectionist. But you have to accept that the video is good, and you have to realize, and maybe there are a few things that you kind of create in a checklist and you just say, okay, does this video have a complete story? Right? Does it have something that if somebody watches this, they understand what I'm trying to convey? Right. And so I'd say that is probably one of the most important check marks overall. But I think there's obviously, quality standard check marks that you could also, nitpick, or you could just be, refined on and just say, okay, this is good. I like it. This is good. I like it. And I think overall we have a good product. And so I think you kind of have to dive into that, because at the end of the day, like it makes me think of a lot of like visual effects stuff. There, you could spend years on different things, creating different things. And I mean, technology would give you easier things the more time you spend on it at this point. But at the end of the day, nobody cares about the 10-second clip that is in the movie that's 3 hour long. It's like an important clip and you still want it to look good, but you don't have to make it look perfect, you know? And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the biggest principles that I was kind of taught throughout my college years or degree.
I like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I relate. But you
Yeah.
do, I like the idea of a checklist, because if you do have a framework or a guide for yourself, and I think we do, I mean, I know you do for the team and your trainings, then it allows us to keep a standard of quality. But then, as
Definitely.
you mentioned, technology is always changing too. So you do have to adapt, and maybe that standard needs to adapt and shift
Oh
along with
yeah.
the shift in technology. Would you agree, disagree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really easy for people to set a standard and get stagnant with it as well. And, I think at the end of the day, I think it's really important to have a standard, but I do think it's really important to continue to change that standard. And I'm not saying change the standard every day, because that's just going to get you back into the perfectionist role. I would say set a standard, maybe stick with it per like quarter or something like that, review it, and then see what maybe you can do more. Because at this point, you've probably learned more yourself. You've probably figured out ways to make things easier, hopefully, anyways, at the end of the day, if you're doing it every day, basically. And you can learn from those and learn ways to elevate everybody else's content or even your own content or just what you're working on. So I think it's definitely important to set a checklist, but to set checks on yourself on when it's time to revise that checklist.
I like that. That's a good framework for just a process, I think, overall, too. When it comes to knowing or finding trends? What do you like to do to stay up to date on technology and make sure that you are using, what is the current standard in an industry or for content overall?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, especially because we dive a lot into like social media, I'll probably dive a lot more into there aspect wise in terms of what's trending, because I feel like everybody is constantly looking at that too. And that's probably one of the biggest and like hardest questions to answer at the end of the day, because everybody has like a different side of TikTok or Instagram or anything that you're looking at. And although, obviously everything can be relevant to you or to the industry that you're trying to project your videos into, it's also important to note that like you don't just want to stay trendy in that. I think it's good to break the walls a little bit and to find new audiences, right? It's good to cater to your current audience, but it's good to find new audiences. And so I would say when approaching the trending topic, I would search. Usually, I like to start by searching like different hashtags for, each type of specific client. Like if I have a real estate client, maybe I want to, dive into more real estate around there, or see what they've posted in the past and see maybe if they have any trending, uh, hashtags going on or anything like that that can be relevant, and then I can use it to find maybe like a trending audio or something. And I would say at the end of the day, also when looking at trending audios, they change so much, and I swear they put on like a new face so rapidly. um, because a lot of the times when you look at a trending audio, right, you can find the same trend maybe like 6 times in your feed, not necessarily back to back, but pretty much scrolling in one day, right? And when you go to that audio, it's a completely different trend. And it's like, okay, wait, what? And that I think goes to show a lot of times that, we have to be paying attention to like when those different audios were posted, because maybe the trend had that audio, but maybe it was 6 months ago. And maybe that's not as relevant as the one that you just saw on your feed and try to replicate that one. And so I think it's really important to kind of take the little bit of extra time when trying to figure out what's trending to also figure out like what you should be doing that's currently trending for each of those styles.
Mm.
And then shift them and make them work for your brand and your style and your message, and just use them as an inspiration, but like don't depend on them. I think it's also important to create, stuff beyond trending content, but to, still try to break those walls and, find new audiences. So
Don't simply be a copycat or ride the
yeah.
bandwagon, so to speak.
I will say though, TikTok overall, I feel like, has that trend of copying. And I think it's good to do that, but I think it's more important to shift that to your own brand at the end of the day. Like take a video that's got millions of views, maybe it only has 100,000 views, but maybe you just like the message. It doesn't even matter. Maybe it has 10 views. And just use that as a framework to create your next piece of content, I would say.
I like it. I think that's great advice. When it comes to the process for evaluating a video and if it is performing well,
Mhm.
and this doesn't have to be just videos that you've edited, but what are you looking for on the platform to say this video is doing great, this video maybe we'll do something different and re-edit it and try something new with it down the road? What's your sort of benchmark, or what are you looking at metric wise when you're trying to evaluate how is this content performing?
Totally. I think at the end of the day, I would say the best, like, most successful kind of video that I always look for and want to create is something that not only gets views, but just gets engagement of some sort. I think it's really important, whether that be comments. Obviously, likes are great, but I think realistically, comments are something that I also like to dive into and just see, like, does this video just have 100,000 views and like 30,000 likes and maybe like 10 comments, or does this video have 20,000 views and like 400 comments or something like that, right? And I think that is a good way to help elevate and engage with not only your community, but like, just the whole platform's community at the end of the day, right? And so I feel like at the end, like I really do try to define that measure of success and those metrics of success as not only views, but I would say quality too, because sometimes, something might just not be relevant enough for a broader audience, but it might do really well with just your specific audience, but maybe the quality is great. Maybe it's like a really well edited piece of content, and I think that's important, honestly, more than even just views. Views are great, and I love it when a client gets, a trending video, or like I can't even think of what it's called. Great right now.
They go viral.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. My
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
I love it when a client goes viral, and I think it's always so exciting to just watch their numbers grow overall, whether it be the numbers on the video, the numbers on the next video, their following, their likes, everything else. I feel like everything follows with that. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't focus on going viral as an end goal. I would focus more on creating probably a steady stream of content and like almost like a community. I think at the end of the day, I think that's really important to kind of be able to create that with similar people in your industry and dive into that. And I would focus on those metrics more than I would even numbers, although I love numbers. I think they're great, especially when they go viral.
Yeah, for sure. And it is always exciting to see. I think your reminder is really social media is social at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can't base your whole performance off of one single video either. It
Yeah.
really is the accumulation and the compilation of all of the videos combined. If we think about, we talk about our virality score. When we talk about our virality score, it's about, how many videos you need in order to get the traction. It's not necessarily ever a guarantee that you can go viral, right? That's the nature of
Mm-hmm.
virality, but you need at least 100 videos to make that progress and to accelerate that broader awareness. And I love how, you kind of raise that understanding too, that your content is going to relate to your audience and it might not be for everybody. I think that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you should focus on both what you like to create and also what might be doing well in your industry on social media, And I think it's good to do both. I'm not saying combine them. You can do that too, absolutely. Because I think there's going to be videos, obviously, where you're going to be really passionate and it's going to be a viral topic, possibly, and it's going to go big. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to create both, because stay true to yourself, but also, rack in those views, get the engagement you want.
Yeah. It's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of balance too, so, the creative and somewhat subjective nature of editing coupled with the technical nature of editing, which you might disagree, but feels very objective to me from where I'm standing. Because technically, like, there's only so much you're constrained by technology, and there are techniques to it as well. But there's a balance, or maybe not. But I wonder if there is a balance between being someone who is creative, like you are, and like all of our team members are, but having to couple that with the technical side that is a little bit more maybe either ensconced in the data aspect and the numbers, or maybe it's the technical aspect of how you execute on the art, if you will. And so
Yeah.
how do you balance that in your mind? How do you like to approach it for yourself? Because I know every creative is a little bit different.
I always am trying to elevate my clients' content. And I think that you have to find ways to expand on what you already know, but also don't be afraid to take risks and go outside of what you already know and try to learn those new techniques, and I think it's a balance, because you don't want to take too much time or too much energy, or I mean, I think with this creative digital element, it's very easy to kind of get wrapped up mentally in a lot of this stuff. And I feel like it's very important to not overly strain your mental state, with video edits, especially because it is just such a mental job more than it is physical. Because we just sit here at a computer and we're doing it all mentally with our hands, pretty much. And so I think it's really important to kind of find that balance through it all, but also continue to always challenge yourself. It's really easy for editors to become complacent. And it's really easy to just stick with the template that you have and just create that video and watch it get posted. And to be honest, we have no idea what's going to go viral at the end of the day. We could put the most time into a video and it get 3 views, and we could create something that we're reluctant to even create because we don't love the idea or anything like that, and it get 1,000,000 views. You never know. And so I think it's important to always just put your all into each video, and at the same time not overextend, or similar to what we were talking about earlier, don't spend too much time on each specific video and that perfection rate, and just make sure that it's good enough in your mind, and that there's nothing wrong with it at all. It just might not look or feel how you initially had thought, but at the end of the day, it's not even my video, it's the client's video. And if that's what they wanted, that's all that matters to me. I think it's really important to just stay relevant in like the creative and production side of things, and dive into maybe different YouTube tutorials, maybe different tutorials that people post, or different, just styles and ways that people edit different videos, and just continue to expand on what I know and branch off that and see if I can maybe not even only replicate that, but to also go in above and beyond, or use different techniques that I've learned through other things to then, create even better things than what I've seen in other tutorials or other things like that. And so I feel like at the end of the day, the more like ease of route and shortcuts and everything that I know how to do, the quicker and better my edits are going to end up. There's less work that it takes me to do because it's usually just very quick and to the point. And most of the time I'm just using short keys to even do what I want at this point, compared to like when most editors start out, they're trying to do everything almost manually. And it's like, there's probably a shorter way to do that. And so just find the balance for it and find the shortcut, and you'll be so much better off. So
you really can be efficient and effective is
Oh
what
yeah.
I'm hearing too. And it really takes either, length of time, experience, or knowledge, or both to get there. So apart from that advice, that you just mentioned, if there is somebody who's just starting out as an editor or even a content creator, what would you tell them, or what kind of advice would you want to share with them so that you can kind of pass on some of the solutions you found for yourself in an attempt to either be more efficient and effective,
Mm-hmm.
or to gain more knowledge? What have you found that's been helpful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say right off the bat, figure out the short keys and the hot cuts that nope, that's shortcuts and hotkeys. I said that backwards. Figure out the shortcuts and hotkeys for whatever editing software you're working in. I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest things, because there's going to be different hotkeys that you have never even heard of, and you don't even know what they do. But just try to experiment with them all and figure it out, because I guarantee that it's going to make it easier at the end of the day. And then just dive into YouTube University at the end of the day. I think there are so many great creators out there on YouTube that can teach you pretty much not necessarily everything that you need to know for like production wise, but I feel like they can teach you and help you to elevate your editing game, and just overall teach you a lot of really good tips and tricks, I think. And I think it's important to continue to just do it. Don't get discouraged overall. Just continue to try new things, even if it feels redundant or irrelevant. I can't tell you how many random things that I did in college that I was, like, I don't even know if I'm ever going to use this, but this is some cool effect that I enjoy. And who knows? I have some random client that wants this kind of effect, and I'm like, oh, I already know how to do this. I might need a quick refresh, but I bet it's in my YouTube history and it's quick to find, you know? And so I think it's important to just continue to branch out and just keep trying. So
I like that. What do you qualify as a success for yourself in your role? What do you either continuously hope to achieve, or what are your goals in moving towards as you get better and better yourself?
yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, I do like to look at number metrics too, but I do think a success for myself is just being able to, continue to learn on the side, try to find new ways to edit things in a quicker manner. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, maybe it's just going through a full edit and not having to figure out how to do this thing or figure out this thing, because maybe I've already done it like 8 times and I know at this point, I think, I feel like success is just always something that should be reevaluated, similar to like the checklist that we were talking about, and something that shouldn't necessarily have a specific overall metric, but maybe benchmarks along the way that you kind of set for yourself. And you're like, okay, I maybe had, 3 videos that I feel like went super viral this year or like this month, and I'm super happy with it. And maybe next month I want to get like 6, or like maybe next month I want to focus on making them maybe more visually aesthetic compared to the way that they looked in the past. Or, I think it's just important to set benchmarks for yourself and to achieve those one at a time instead of looking at an overall like success rate.
No, I like that. I think there's more behind the number too that needs to be factored in and considered, especially in an industry like digital marketing, but even more so when it comes to content creation, because there's the subjective nature of it and the objective when it comes to looking at that data too. So I love
Absolutely.
your mentality and philosophy behind that. I think that's great. And I'm going to look forward to 2024 Josh goals when we chat about that offline. But who knows? You all might get to hear about those too. I know we're wrapping up our episode today, but Josh, people can actually find your work online because you will probably be editing this podcast, I think, right?
That's true. Yes, I believe so.
So this podcast is brought to you by Josh himself, who edited it. And Josh also edits the majority of our FMO media content for our FMO channels. So you've definitely seen Josh's work in action, but I hope everybody will at some point get to experience working alongside Josh, especially with our instant social video program, because we do have a lot of different options for any type of creator who, whether you're new and just getting into content creation or a veteran of content creation and you need some of that additional help. Josh and team are really excited to be able to work with everybody and anybody. So thank you, Josh, for joining me today and chatting a little bit about, it's really just the glimmer of what you do. We could go on and on, but it's a really great insight into how you work and your creativity and your mind. And, we appreciate you on the team. So I hope everybody appreciated this episode. Any last words or thoughts before we end and wrap?
I would just say that anybody that's considering it, just try it. I mean, at the end of the day, just stop focusing on the perfectionist side of things and just get out there and start creating, and we are more than happy to help you along the way on that process. Yeah, exactly. Just create. I think so many people get stuck in the process of just overthinking it, and just do it. Yeah. Like, just get past it, try it out, make a couple videos, and if you need help, we're here. So
I love it. Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.